Hi Tapas,
Hi Aditya,
welcome back to Sudeep's channel.
it's completely my pleasure.
We had very interesting and useful tips shared by you in a video series,
Mm.
which be, I'm tempted to call Mondays with Tapas.
That's great. Why not?
So at least for the next few Mondays, we'll see you coming on our channel and talking about various so-called simple tips, which some people might say, "Oh, this is very simple," but it took a lot of time for you to explore and
Yeah,
understand them
for sure.
on your own. On a similar note, Logic 10 has been introduced by Apple recently. I know you're one of the first people who jumped to
Probably the
it, and
first to download it in India, I
yeah,
guess.
at least one of the first few people. And you have already kind of understood the nuances of the new OS.
Yes.
Things that you've learned about Logic, which are not mentioned in their you know promotions or
Yes.
advertising and communication to others. So could you share with the viewers uh, what are those things which you've kind of discovered?
Yes, for sure. First, thank you again, and I'm also overwhelmed at the response that the tips have gotten. You really enjoy sharing tips when people are eager to learn and know. So yes, coming back to your question, Apple certainly has made a winner of a DAW in Logic 10. If you ask me, of course you'll get different opinions about this. But like every major company, the marketing and the PR and the selling point always remain the big features, the big new features. So in the case of Logic and Apple, they are concentrating, they are marketing the drummer track, they are marketing the pitch correction tool and the new GUI and everything. But I have sussed out Logic 10. I've spent a lot of time with it, and I have understood what are the more subtle changes that professionals were actually waiting for. So I'll take this opportunity to show those subtle changes and tweaks that Logic has gone through, which Apple is not covering on their PR.
Okay, sure. Let's take a look.
Yep, let's take a look. Right. First, I'm going to take you through the new save features of Logic Pro 10, which includes autosave, alternatives, session backups, and save as a project, a package, or a folder. Logic 10 now gives you an option to save your session as a package as opposed to a folder that you were familiar with in Logic 9. A package is a single file, is a single package file that contains all your data, all your media and settings and instruments in one package file. It's kind of a folder but not a folder. Let me show you how to do that. Go to the save or save as dialog, which will bring you to this menu over here. Navigate to the folder where you want to save the session and label it to whatever you want to. Now over here, select package and include whatever you want to include in the package file and hit save. Now let's quit Logic and take a look at that package that we just saved on the desktop. When you open this folder, you'll see that Logic 10 has saved only one package file. When you double click this file, it'll open your session. But let me show you what's inside the package. You have to open the package, you'll need to right click and say show package contents. And this is where all your media, your resources, your settings, your instruments, and your plugins reside. I really recommend this way of saving a project since you don't have to wade through a lot of folders to get to your session file. I'm sure you guys are wondering how to go about saving versions or alternative edits of your session the way you used to in Logic 9 within a project folder using the same resources. Obviously, you can't go around saving a package for each version or an alternative edit of your same session because the package will save all those audio files and settings and plugins and instruments all over again, and as many times as you save the package. That just takes up a lot of hard disk space. But thankfully, Logic 10 now has an alternatives feature in where you can save alternative edits of your session within a package file. So let me just go ahead and show you that now. Let's say this is your main session, the main edit or the main alternative that you locked down on, but now you want to work on one other option and save it as an alternative and not save it as an all new package altogether. So first things first, you'll need to save this edit as the master alternative. You'll need to name this alternative. Go to File, Alternatives, say edit alternatives. This is the main edit that you're working on right now. Name it as master edit and say done. Now let's perform a few edits on the audio tracks and save it as an alternative. So let's get rid of this over here. Let's get rid of these guys over here. Let's mute these and mute these. Now I want to save this as an alternative and not as a separate package. So within the session, I'll go to File, Alternatives, and I'll say New Alternative. I'll label it Option 1. You can see in the title bar over here that now your project 1, your title name is followed by the alternative name, which is Option 1. Now, if you ever want to go back to your master edit, you don't have to close this session, go to your package file, open the package file, or do none of that. You just have to go over here, alternatives, and say master edit. It will close this session and open that. If you want to jump back to your new edit, you go to alternatives and select the other alternative. Yeah, don't say that. There you are. This is a great way to keep as many edits and alternatives of your session as you wish without having to save them as separate project folders or project packages. Next, Logic 10 now introduces a great new feature called automatic backups. Up till Logic 9, every time you saved a session, it would overwrite the previous version of the same session, which basically meant that there was no way for you to go back to a version you had saved a couple of hours earlier, or maybe even 2 days earlier if it was a larger project that you were working on. But with Logic 10, every time you save a session, it creates a backup of that version before saving the new one. And the best part, there is no user intervention required to create or manage these backups. Logic does all of this seamlessly under the hood. Let me show you how this works. Now this session has only been saved once. So if you go to the file menu, click on it, you'll see there's a new entry called revert to. This will show you the state of all your automatic backups. In this case, since I've never saved it again, it's just showing me the date and time of the version that was last saved. Now for the sake of this example, I'll be performing a few edits on this session and save it a couple of times over a period of 10-15 minutes so that you can see how automatic backups work. Since this project has only been saved once, the revert to dialog will only show you one version, which is the latest version. Now I'll quickly perform some edits on this session, some minor edits, and save it. I'll just go ahead and save this now. File, save. Now you can see over here that it's created a backup of the previous version before saving this latest version. Remember, automatic backups will take up to 10 backups per alternative. So now if I want to go back to a previous version, I just have to click on the first backup and it will take me there. There. My first edit, my master edit is back. Now if I want to go back to what I preferred, I would go over here and select the latest session. There. When you reach the threshold of 10 automatic backups, Logic will start overwriting the earliest backup. So at any given point in time, you will have about 10 versions to go back per alternative. So that was automatic backups. Autosave is not a configurable option with customizable settings. It's just one more great feature that operates under the hood. Autosave saves your work so that you do not lose important changes if the application quits unexpectedly. That means that if you reopen Logic after a crash, a dialog appears from which you can choose if you want to open the auto-saved version or the last manually saved version of the same project. I think this is a great feature and ensures that you will never lose any of your work ever again because of a crash. If you are new to Logic 10, then you probably wondered what the new blue power buttons on the tracks are supposed to do. because when you switch them off, all they seem to be doing is mute the track. Then why not use the mute button instead? To better explain this, I'll need to switch to Logic 9 preferences and explain to you how this works. Logic always gave you two kinds of solos or mutes. One is the track solo that you could enable from the track itself, and the other was the channel strip solo when you solo a track from the mixer. Additionally, Logic 9 also gave you an option to choose how the track, mute, and solo buttons would behave once they were executed. You could set those preferences from Audio, General, and choosing from the drop down menu where it says track mute slash solo. You could either use CPU saving, which was slow response, or fast, which was remote channel strips. By default, most of you would be using fast remote channel strips. So in that case, when you would hit the solo button on the track, the channel strip automatically would get soloed. And likewise, if you mute a track, the channel strip would also get muted. Let's go back to Logic 10 now. Logic 10 now no longer offers you the option of selecting which kind of solo and mute would you like to perform on your tracks or your channel strips. Instead, Logic 10 now offers you both these options in the track header itself. The mute and solo buttons on the track now are by default assigned to remote channel strips, which means if you solo a track, it will solo the connected channel strip, and if you mute a track, it will also mute that particular channel strip. And if you want to access CPU saving solo, then you have to select those regions you want to solo and use the region solo mode by hitting this button over here or by assigning a keyboard shortcut command to it. And similarly, if you want to access CPU saving mute mode, you select the regions and press and mute the regions, or you can hit the power button over here and switch it off. Switching off or turning off a track lets you mute a track while still hearing other tracks in the project assigned to the same channel strip. For example, instruments with multiple outputs. This is different from muting a channel strip, because when you mute a channel strip, everything that goes to the channel strip is also muted. This was called CPU saving mode because when you turn off a track, it no longer processes the plugins on that particular channel strip. Logic 10 now allows you to apply batch fades to multiple selected regions by clicking and dragging in the fade zone of an audio region, which is basically this upper part of any audio region. Please do not confuse this with the fade tool, which is available in the tool menu of Logic Pro when you right click or when you hit the escape key, which is essentially this. You cannot yet apply batch fades with the fade tool. We'll just take a look at how to do this. There are two ways to do this. One is by first changing the preferences in your global preferences by turning the top part of an audio region into a permanent fade zone, which you can just click and drag and apply a fade instantly, or via modifier keys if you do not want to change your preferences. Head over to the Logic Pro Preferences, General, and go to the Editing tab. The part where it says Pointer Tool in Tracks provides fade tool click zones. Enable this for a default setting of a fade zone in your audio regions. So once you do that, when you just hover your mouse at the top of the region, beginning or end, it'll turn to a cursor, a fade cursor, and you can just drag and perform a fade. And now in Logic 10, when you select multiple files and do that, it applies the same setting to all the files. However, if you do not want to perform the preference change in your global preferences, then you can also use modifier keys to apply an instant fade. First, let's go and disable the preference. General, editing. Let's disable that. And now if you want to perform a batch fade, you have to just click on, hit Control Shift on your keyboard, and the cursor will automatically turn to the fade thing, and you can just drag. Control Shift, click, drag. Control Shift, click, drag. Just a heads up, at the time of doing this screencast, the batch fade functionality of Logic 10 does have a few known bugs, most noticeably while undoing batch fades. When you undo batch fades, it might not undo all the fades that you created. Logic 10 now finally offers you the functionality of selecting multiple tracks and moving them together or deleting them at once. So now if you want to move multiple tracks, shift click tracks in sequence or command click tracks not in sequence and drag them to wherever you want. And additionally, you can also delete multiple tracks by selecting them like that. Logic 10 now offers you new keyboard shortcuts by which you can directly create new specific tracks like a software instrument track or an audio track, drummer track. Earlier in Logic 9, up to Logic 9, whenever you wanted to create a new track by hitting the plus button or by using a keyboard shortcut, you always had to go through this dialog and select which kind of track do you want to create. But now with Logic 10, you can assign specific keyboard shortcuts to create specific kinds of new tracks. Just go to Logic Pro, key commands, edit, type in new track, and now you'll see new entries for, there is obviously the default new tracks, but now there is a new audio track, new software instrument track, new drummer track, and a new external MIDI track. So now when you want to create a new software instrument track, just hit your favorite keyboard command and there you are. Logic 10 now introduces some great tweaks to the automation department and makes it really sturdy. To begin with, Logic 10 now offers you a global automation bypass button on all tracks by default. So now if you want to quickly bypass automation on a track, you don't have to switch the track status from read, touch, latch, write to off, which is now gone as you can see. You just have to click this button and it will bypass the automation on that track. Secondly, the automation nodes in a track or in a region are now much more sturdy and not susceptible to accidental inputs. Let me explain this. Earlier in Logic 9, if you would accidentally click anywhere in a region with automation enabled, it would change your node, it would create a node at that particular position, which was really bad and was really irritating, like this. I would click anywhere accidentally and it would just change my automation for that entire track. But this case is no longer there in Logic 10 and I'm glad that they've fixed it. For example, if I was to click at this position while the automation is at 0 dB, it would now no longer change the volume to where I click. It would just enable the automation like this. I can go ahead and create my nodes and do my automation and still be safely assured that no more accidental clicks are going to change my automation. Now it is also easier to select multiple nodes by clicking and dragging across multiple automation nodes without using a modifier key. Up till Logic 9, you are required to press the Shift key in an automation mode and drag to select multiple nodes. But now you can just click and drag like that without having to use any modifier key, which I think is a great tool for improving your efficiency and your workflow. In Logic 10, now when you import a track from another session with a track that has sends already assigned in that session, it will now ask you if you want to use insert new auxes from that session or use auxes that are already open in this session. So if I import a track with sends already assigned from a different session, and I click on add, it'll ask me this. By selecting add, you can create a new aux or you can choose an existing aux from your project corresponding to this aux in the source project. So I can either say add, in which case it'll add new auxes for that particular track, or I can use from any of the auxes that are already open in this session. I think this is a great feature because earlier, whenever I used to import multiple tracks from previous sessions, it would force me to add new aux tracks for all those tracks. So I would end up having multiple auxes and sends for all those tracks, which then I had to go and delete one by one. So that was the track import feature. I'm still discovering tweaks and new features of Logic 10. Stay tuned to the Sudeep Audio channel and I shall regularly keep on updating it for you guys. Please remember The Logic Pro 10 is available only via the Mac App Store that comes installed on every Mac OS system. It is not available in retail shops or in box packs. The only way to get it is fire up the Mac App Store on your laptop or your Mac, uh, purchase it, download it, install it, and enjoy it.